The Galactic Defense Academy's corridors buzzed with the usual mix of alien languages and nervous energy. First-year cadets from dozens of worlds hurried between classes, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes against the sterile white walls. Among them walked Maya Chen, her small human frame easily lost in the crowd of towering Krellian warriors and sleek Viridian scholars. The Academy had only recently opened its doors to humans after Earth's admission to the Galactic Alliance. Maya was one of just 12 humans in a student body of over 3,000. Most days, she felt invisible. Today would be different. Training Deck 7 hummed with activity as combat tactics class began. Instructor Vexstar, a massive Krellian with scarred purple skin and, for powerful arms, surveyed his students with predatory yellow eyes. His species had dominated galactic military forces for centuries, and he made sure everyone knew it. Today we practice close-quarters combat scenarios, Vexstar announced, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. You will face opponents from different species. Learn their weaknesses. Exploit them without mercy. Maya watched from the back as pairs of students began sparring. The Krellians dominated with brute strength, their thick hides deflecting most attacks. The insectoid Zephyrians used speed and their razor-sharp limbs to dart around opponents. The crystalline Valdans relied on their natural armor and precise strikes. Near the center of the mat, she noticed Kep, a nervous Tritanian whose pale blue skin glistened with anxiety sweat. His species evolved in deep ocean trenches, making them physically weak in standard gravity. Other students often picked on him, and today was no exception. 3 senior Krellian cadets surrounded Kep, their leader Thrak grinning with malicious intent. Thrak stood nearly 8 feet tall, his massive frame casting a shadow over the trembling Tritanian. Look what we have here, Thrak sneered. The fish boy thinks he can be a warrior. Instructor Vexstar was engaged with a group of Viridian students across the room, demonstrating proper blade techniques. He didn't notice as Thrak shoved Kep backward, sending the smaller alien stumbling. My home world's military requested me specifically, Kep said quietly, trying to maintain dignity. I have every right to be here. The second Krellian, Gorak, laughed harshly. Rights? You can barely stand in normal gravity. How do you expect to fight? They formed a tighter circle around Kep, who backed against the wall. His large, dark eyes darted around for escape, but found none. The other students either looked away or watched with morbid curiosity. No one moved to help. Maya felt her heart racing as she watched the confrontation escalate. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory from when bullies had cornered her in school back on Earth. Sometimes standing up for others is more important than standing up for yourself. Thrak raised his massive fist, the veins in his thick arm pulsing with barely contained violence. Kep pressed himself against the wall, closing his eyes and preparing for the impact that would likely break several bones. This is for wasting the Academy's time on weaklings, Thrak snarled. The fist came down like a hammer. Maya moved without thinking. Her small human frame darted between students twice her size, covering the 15 feet to the wall in seconds. Her hand shot up just as Thrak's fist descended, her palm meeting his knuckles with a sharp crack. The entire training deck fell silent. Thrak stared in shock at the tiny human who had somehow stopped his full-force punch. Maya's hand trembled from the impact, pain shooting up her arm, but she held her ground. Her brown eyes met his yellow ones without flinching. That's enough, she said quietly, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Gorak recovered first, laughing so hard he had to hold his sides. A human? The weakest species in the galaxy thinks she can fight Krellians? The third Krellian, Drak, joined in the laughter. They say humans come from a death world, but look at her. She's barely bigger than the fish boy. Thrak's face darkened with rage and embarrassment. No one had ever stopped one of his punches, especially not a soft-skinned human half his size. He pulled his fist back and examined his knuckles, seeing small scratches from Maya's grip. You want to play hero, little human? Thrak growled. Fine. But, when I'm done with you, I'll finish what I started with the fish. Maya stepped protectively in front of Kep, who stared at her in amazement. Around the training deck, other students began to notice the commotion. Some pulled out recording devices, sensing that something significant was about to happen. I'm not playing anything, Maya replied, flexing her stinging hand. And, his name is Kep. Word of the confrontation spread through the training deck like wildfire. Students from other sparring groups stopped their practice to gather around the growing circle. The air crackled with tension as Maya stood her ground against 3 Krellians, each one capable of crushing her with their bare hands. Instructor Vextar finally noticed the disturbance. His massive frame pushed through the crowd of students, his scarred face showing irritation at the interruption to his class. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice booming across the deck. Thrak immediately straightened, switching to a respectful tone. "Instructor, the human interfered with legitimate combat training. I was demonstrating Krellian superiority to this Tritonian when she attacked me." Several students nodded in agreement, though Maya noticed a few exchanging uncomfortable glances. The politics of the academy were clear: Krellians held most of the high positions, and challenging them was dangerous. Maya felt all eyes on her. Her mouth went dry, but she forced herself to speak. He was about to seriously hurt Kep. 3 against 1 isn't training, it's bullying. Vextar's yellow eyes studied Maya with interest. As a Krellian himself, he had little sympathy for weaker species, but the academy had strict rules about unauthorized violence between students. "Is this true?" he asked Kep. The Tritonian's gills fluttered nervously. Maya could see the fear in his large eyes. Speaking against the Krellians would make his life at the academy even more difficult. They were. Kep started, then looked at Maya's determined face. Something in her expression gave him courage. "Yes, instructor. They cornered me and threatened violence outside of official sparring." Thrak's face flushed darker purple. "The fish is lying. And this human has no right to interfere in Krellian discipline." "Krellian discipline?" Maya stepped forward, her small frame dwarfed by Thrak's bulk. "You're not his commanding officer. You're just a bully." The crowd gasped. No one spoke to Krellians that way, especially not a human. Thrak's forearms tensed, his massive hands clenching into fists. "You want to learn about Krellian discipline, little human? I'll teach you personally." "Enough," Vextar commanded. "If there is a dispute about combat ability, we settle it properly. Thrak, you claim the human cannot interfere with Krellian business. Human, you claim to protect the weak. We will test these claims." Maya's heart sank. She had hoped the instructor would simply punish Thrak for unsanctioned aggression. Instead, she now faced an official challenge. "Instructor," said a soft voice from the crowd. Everyone turned to see Zaraki, a senior Viridian student known for her academic brilliance. Her silver skin shimmered with patterns that indicated deep thought. According to academy regulations, challenges must be fair and proportional. A human against a Krellian hardly meets those standards. Thrak laughed harshly. The Viridian makes excuses for human weakness. Typical of a species that hides behind books instead of fighting. Zaraki's pattern shifted to show mild annoyance. "I state facts, not opinions. Krellians have twice human muscle density, natural armor plating, and forearms. The challenge would violate safety protocols." Maya felt a spark of gratitude toward Zaraki, but she couldn't let others fight her battles. Her grandfather had taught her that backing down from bullies only encouraged them. "I accept the challenge," Maya said clearly. The crowd erupted in surprised chatter. Even Vextar looked taken aback. "Human, you do not understand what you're agreeing to," the instructor warned. "Krellians have won 93% of academy combat competitions for the past 50 years. "I understand perfectly," Maya replied, though her hands shook slightly. "But sometimes you have to stand up for what's right, even when the odds are against you." From behind her, Kep whispered, "Maya, don't do this for me. I'm not worth getting hurt over." She turned to look at the trembling Tritonian, then at the crowd of students watching with mixed expressions of anticipation and fear. Many of them were from smaller, weaker species who had endured similar treatment from the stronger races. "Yes, you are," Maya said simply. "Everyone here is." Vextar considered for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well. But we will modify the challenge to prevent permanent injury. Close combat only, no weapons. Fight continues until one participant yields or is unable to continue. Medical teams will be standing by." As the instructor moved to clear a proper fighting area, Maya noticed more students arriving. Word was spreading throughout the academy that a human was about to fight a senior Krellian. Some came to witness what they expected to be a quick and brutal defeat. Others came hoping to see something different. Thrak cracked his knuckles, all four hands creating a symphony of popping joints. I'll try to leave you conscious, little human. Wouldn't want to damage Earth's reputation on your first official beating. Maya took deep breaths, trying to calm her racing heart. She thought of her grandfather again, a former martial arts instructor who had taught her that size and strength weren't everything in a fight. In a real fight, he had said, the winner isn't always the strongest. Sometimes it's the one who wants it most. As the fighting circle formed around them, Maya realized she was about to find out just how much truth those words contained. The fighting circle expanded as more students poured into Training Deck 7. Word had spread through the Academy's communication networks faster than Maya had thought possible. She could see students from every major species represented in the crowd: tall, elegant Altarians with their flowing robes, compact, heavily muscled Draknari with their scaled skin, even some of the rare Etherians whose translucent forms flickered in and out of visibility. Medical teams took positions around the circle, their various species working together to prepare for what most expected to be a very short fight. Dr. Helix, the Academy's chief medical officer, approached Maya with concern evident in his compound eyes. Human Maya, are you certain about this course of action? The insectoid physician asked in his clicking accent. Krellian physiology grants significant advantages in close combat scenarios. Maya nodded, though she appreciated his concern. I'm sure, Doctor. Very well. I have reviewed human medical data. Your species possesses unusual pain tolerance and healing factors for your size class. This may prove interesting. As Dr. Helix moved away, Maya noticed Academy Commandant Torval entering the training deck. The ancient Valdaran's crystalline form reflected the overhead lights in dazzling patterns. His presence meant this fight had gained official attention from the highest levels of Academy leadership. Thrak seemed to grow even larger as he stepped into the circle. His purple skin had darkened to almost black with excitement, and his forearms moved in the traditional Krellian pre-combat ritual. The display was meant to intimidate opponents, and it worked on most species. Maya watched his movements carefully. Her grandfather had taught her to observe opponents before fighting them. Thrak was strong and experienced, but he was also overconfident. He expected an easy victory against what he saw as an inferior species. Begin when ready, Instructor Vextar announced. Thrak immediately charged, his massive frame moving faster than something his size should have been able to move. His primary arms swung wide while his secondary arms prepared for grappling, intending to overwhelm Maya with sheer force. Maya did something unexpected. Instead of trying to dodge or block, she moved forward into Thrak's charge. Her small size allowed her to slip beneath his swinging arms and get inside his reach. Before he could adjust, she drove her elbow upward into his solar plexus. The blow shouldn't have affected a Krellian. Their natural armor and thick muscle should have absorbed such a strike easily. But Maya had aimed for a specific point her grandfather had taught her about, the small gap where armor plates met muscle, just below the ribcage. Thrak's eyes widened in surprise as pain shot through his torso. No one his size had ever gotten that close, and no one that small had ever hit him hard enough to feel. The crowd murmured in amazement as Thrak stumbled backward, one of his hands instinctively moving to the impact point. Impossible, Gorak whispered from the sidelines. Humans don't have that kind of strength. Maya didn't give Thrak time to recover. She followed up with a series of quick strikes, targeting pressure points and joints her grandfather had shown her on anatomy charts. Each blow was precise, aimed not at causing massive damage but at disrupting nerve clusters and blood flow. Thrak roared in frustration and swung all four arms in a wild attack. Maya ducked and weaved between them, her human flexibility allowing her to bend in ways the rigid Krellian anatomy couldn't match. She was like water flowing around stone, always moving, never where Thrak expected her to be. From the crowd, Zaraki observed with fascination. Remarkable. Human combat doctrine appears to emphasize precision over power. Most unusual for a species from a high-gravity world. Commandant Torval's crystalline features remained impassive, but his internal light patterns suggested deep interest. Indeed. I have reviewed Earth's military history. Their species has a long tradition of smaller forces defeating larger ones through superior tactics and adaptability. Maya continued her defensive strategy, letting Thrak tire himself with massive swings that hit nothing but air. Each missed attack left him more frustrated and less controlled. She could see his breathing becoming labored as his huge muscles consumed oxygen at an unsustainable rate. But Maya was tiring too. Her smaller frame couldn't keep up this pace forever, and one solid hit from Thrak would end the fight immediately. She needed to change tactics. As Thrak launched another charge, Maya did something that stunned the entire crowd. Instead of dodging, she grabbed his leading arm and used his own momentum against him, executing a perfect throwing technique that sent the massive Krellian crashing to the deck. The training deck fell completely silent. A human had just thrown a Krellian warrior twice her size. Thrak lay on the deck, staring at the ceiling in shock. In his entire life, no one had ever used his own strength against him like that. He rolled over and pushed himself up on his hands and knees, purple blood dripping from a split lip. How? He gasped. Maya stood over him, breathing hard but still on her feet. My grandfather taught me something. He said the strongest tree breaks in the storm, but the reed bends and survives. She extended her hand to help him up. The fight doesn't have to continue. You can yield. Thrak looked at her outstretched hand, then at the faces of the students surrounding them. Some showed amazement, others confusion. A few of the smaller species looked hopeful for the first time since arriving at the academy. But Thrak's pride wouldn't let him accept defeat from a human. With a roar of rage, he slapped her hand away and surged to his feet, all four arms reaching for her. Thrak's rejection of mercy sent a ripple of tension through the crowd. Even among Krellians, refusing an honorable offer to yield was considered poor sportsmanship. But pride ran deep in warrior cultures, and Thrak couldn't accept that a human had outfought him. Maya sidestepped his desperate grab and landed another precise strike to his knee joint. Thrak's leg buckled, sending him stumbling sideways into the circle of watching students. Several Altarians stepped back gracefully while a group of Draknari steadied the massive warrior. Stay down, Maya called out, genuine concern in her voice. You're hurt. I don't need pity from a human, Thrak snarled, pushing away from the other students. His leg clearly pained him, but Krellian stubbornness wouldn't let him show weakness. From the crowd, a new voice spoke up. Perhaps you need wisdom instead. Everyone turned to see Elder Korthian, the Academy's senior philosophy instructor and one of the few beings old enough to remember first contact between multiple galactic species. The ancient Etherian's translucent form solidified as he moved through the crowd. Honored Elder, Commandant Torvel said respectfully. We did not expect your presence at a combat demonstration. Korthian's form shimmered with what might have been amusement. When word reached me that a human was demonstrating classical Earth martial arts against a Krellian warrior, I found myself curious. Maya felt suddenly self-conscious. She hadn't realized that her grandfather's teachings had names in galactic databases. You know about human fighting techniques? Child of Earth, your species has been observed since your planet's first radio signals reached our monitoring stations. Your military history is quite fascinating to scholars of warfare. Small forces using terrain and tactics to defeat much larger armies. David and Goliath, as your ancient texts describe it. Thrak forced himself upright again, though his injured leg made him favor his right side. Tricks and cowardice. A true warrior fights with strength and honor. Korthian's form flickered with what the crowd recognized as disappointment. Young Krellian, you confuse brutality with strength. This human child has shown you more honor than you have shown her. How can you say that? Gorak demanded from the sidelines. She's using tricks instead of fighting properly. The elder's attention turned to Maya, who stood ready but not aggressive, clearly hoping the fight could end without further violence. Tell me, young human, why do you fight? Maya glanced at Kep, who watched anxiously from the edge of the circle. To protect someone who couldn't protect himself. To show that strength isn't just about size or having four arms. And you, Krellian warrior? Why do you fight? Thrak's face showed confusion at the question. 2. To prove Krellian superiority. To show that humans are weak. Korthian's form grew more solid, a sign that he was preparing to make an important point. Therein lies the difference. She fights for others. You fight for yourself. Which shows greater strength of character? The watching students began murmuring among themselves. Many had never considered that there might be different types of strength, different reasons for fighting. Instructor Vextar looked uncomfortable with the philosophical turn the demonstration had taken. Elder, with respect, this is a combat training exercise. Character is not the primary consideration. Is it not? Corthian asked. Tell me, instructor, what makes a warrior? Muscle mass? Number of limbs? Or perhaps the will to stand against overwhelming odds for a righteous cause? Maya found herself at the center of a debate she hadn't intended to start. Around the circle, she could see students from smaller species watching with new interest. For many of them, the academy had been a place where physical dominance determined social order. Thrak attempted another attack, but his injured leg betrayed him. He stumbled forward, arms swinging wildly. Maya could have easily struck him while he was off balance, potentially ending the fight. Instead, she caught him and helped him regain his footing. Why? Thrak gasped, staring at her in bewilderment. Why help me? Because that's what we do, Maya said simply. Humans don't win by making enemies. We win by making friends. For the first time since the fight began, Thrak really looked at Maya. Not as an inferior species to be dominated, but as an individual. He saw determination in her brown eyes, but also compassion. She had clearly won their combat, but she took no joy in his pain. I yield, Thrak said quietly. The word seemed to surprise him as much as everyone else. Krellians rarely yielded in combat, especially to smaller opponents. But something in Maya's actions had reached him. The crowd erupted in amazed chatter. Students from smaller species looked at each other with new hope. If a human could earn a Krellian's respect through skill and honor rather than fear, perhaps the Academy's social order wasn't as fixed as they had believed. Dr. Helix immediately moved to examine Thrak's injured leg while Maya stepped back, finally, allowing herself to feel the exhaustion that had been building throughout the fight. Well fought, Commandant Torval said, his crystalline form approaching Maya. Your techniques were unconventional but effective. Maya straightened despite her fatigue. Thank you, Commandant. I hope this won't reflect poorly on the other human students. The Valdaran's internal lights pulsed in a pattern Maya didn't recognize. On the contrary. You may have taught us all something valuable today. 3 weeks after the fight, the Academy had changed in ways both subtle and profound. Maya walked through the corridors that had once felt intimidating, now accompanied by an unlikely group of friends from various species. The rigid social hierarchies that had dominated student life were beginning to crack. Kep swam alongside her in a portable water suit that allowed him to move more naturally between classes. The Tritonian had gained confidence since the fight, even volunteering answers in tactical planning courses where his species' three-dimensional thinking gave unique insights. The instructors are starting to pair different species for combat training, Kep observed, his voice bubbling through the water speakers. Viridians with Draknari, Etherians with Altarians. They're calling it adaptive combat doctrine. Maya smiled as they passed a sparring session where a small Zephyrian was successfully using speed and precision to outmaneuver a much larger Valdaran. 3 weeks ago, such a pairing would have been considered impossible. Change takes time, she said. But it's happening. At the end of the corridor, they found Thrak waiting by the entrance to advanced tactics class. The massive Krellian's leg had healed completely, though Dr. Helix had recommended he continue flexibility exercises to prevent future injuries. Maya, Thrak said formally. May I speak with you? The request surprised her. Since yielding their fight, Thrak had been polite but distant. His friends Gorak and Drak had largely avoided her, though they had stopped bullying smaller students. Of course, Maya replied. Thrak looked uncomfortable, his forehands fidgeting with his equipment belt. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For showing mercy during our combat. And, for. He paused, struggling with words. For teaching me something about strength. Kep's eyes widened behind his water mask. Krellians rarely admitted to learning from other species, especially ones they had previously considered inferior. I've been thinking about what Elder Corthian said, Thrak continued. About fighting for others versus fighting for yourself. I joined the academy to prove Krellian superiority. But, watching you these past weeks, seeing how other students respond to your leadership. I think I had the wrong idea about what makes a good warrior. Maya felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the corridor's heating systems.
What do you mean? You've never tried to dominate anyone. But, students from dozens of species follow your example.
In tactical simulations, mixed species teams perform better when you're involved.
The instructors have noticed. It was true, though Maya hadn't realized others were paying such close attention.
Her approach to academy life had remained the same as on Earth: help when you can, stand up to bullies, and treat everyone with respect regardless of their background.
Commander Torval wants to see you, Thrak added. Something about a special assignment. Maya's stomach fluttered with nervousness. Do you know what kind of assignment? The Academy is sending a diplomatic mission to the Outer Rim. First contact with a new species that recently achieved faster than light travel. They want students from different backgrounds as cultural ambassadors.
Kep's gills fluttered with excitement.
First contact. Maya, that's incredible.
As they entered the advanced tactics classroom, Maya saw Elder Korthian speaking quietly with instructor Vextar. The Krellian instructor had also changed in recent weeks, incorporating more diverse combat styles into his curriculum and pairing students in ways that emphasized cooperation over dominance.
Ah, young human, Elder Korthian said as she approached. Perfect timing.
We were just discussing the philosophical implications of your academy performance.
My performance?
Vextar nodded grudgingly. Your combat techniques have been studied by the tactical department. The way you used an opponent's strength against them, your emphasis on precision over power, it's being integrated into our standard curriculum.
Maya felt overwhelmed. I was just doing what my grandfather taught me.
Yes, Korthian said, his translucent form shimmering with approval. And, in doing so, you demonstrated something that all the textbooks in the galaxy could not teach: that true strength comes not from what you can destroy, but from what you can protect and preserve. Through the classroom windows, Maya could see the Academy's central courtyard where students from dozens of species trained together. Krellians worked alongside Tritonians, Viridians shared tactical insights with Draknari, and Etherians provided wisdom to younger students regardless of species.
The diplomatic mission departs in 2 days, Vextar said.
You'll be part of a team representing the best of what the Academy teaches. Not just combat skills or academic knowledge, but the ability to bring different species together for common goals.
As the class session began, Maya took her usual seat near the back. But today was different.
Students from various species had moved to sit near her, forming an organic mixed species group that would have been unthinkable a month ago. Thrak had taken the seat beside her, his massive frame somehow less intimidating than it used to be. I have a question, he said quietly as the instructor began the lesson.
What? Your grandfather who taught you to fight, was he a great warrior?
Maya thought of the old man who had spent his evenings teaching a young girl how to defend herself and others. How he had emphasized that true martial arts weren't about violence, but about protecting what mattered.
Yes, she said softly. He was the greatest warrior I ever knew.
As Elder Korthian began a lesson on interspecies cooperation in military operations, Maya realized that her grandfather's teachings had traveled farther than he could have ever imagined. From a small martial arts studio on Earth to the corridors of the galaxy's premier military academy, the simple lessons about standing up for others and finding strength through unity had taken root. Outside the windows, the stars beckoned with new challenges and opportunities. In 2 days, she would join a mission to welcome another species into the galactic community. But, for now, she sat in a classroom where former enemies had become friends, where diversity was becoming strength, and where a girl from Earth had learned that sometimes the smallest person in the room could make the biggest difference.